The spaceport of Valen Prime was unlike anything Ethan Cole had ever seen. He had visited many alien stations before, but this one felt alive in a strange, overwhelming way. The market stretched across glowing streets, packed with beings from dozens of different species. Stalls floated on anti-gravity pads, their signs written in flickering alien scripts. The air smelled of spices, metals, and the ozone of strange machinery. Ethan moved carefully through the crowd. He was here to trade, fuel cells and spare parts, nothing more. Yet his eyes kept wandering, searching for something new, something unexpected. Humanity was still relatively young in the greater galaxy. To many alien species, humans were newcomers, curious and unpredictable. Ethan liked that reputation. As he walked deeper into the market, he noticed a section he had not seen before. A wide arch with glowing letters hung above it. His wrist translator beeped softly and displayed the meaning, Companions Row. At first he thought it was some sort of lodging service, perhaps a place where travelers could hire guides or helpers. But as he entered, he realized this was something else. Behind clear panels stood beings, most of them humanoid, each dressed in simple clothes. They were displayed like merchandise. Some had signs above them written in languages his translator struggled to render. House attendant, singer, listener, caretaker. Ethan frowned. It felt wrong, even if the beings looked well-fed and unharmed. They were not machines. They were people. Yet here they stood, silent, waiting for someone to claim them. He was about to turn away when his eyes fell on one of the figures near the EI corner. She was different from the others. The young woman stood straight, her silver-blue skin glowing faintly under the light. Her hair was long and soft, like threads of pale crystal. Her eyes were large and bright, almost too bright, with a faint golden ring around the pupils. Unlike the others who kept their heads lowered, she met his gaze directly. For a moment, Ethan forgot the noise of the market. The sign above her read, Love Slave, Lyra of the Solari. Ethan's stomach tightened. His translator offered no softer word for what the sign meant. He knew that in some parts of the galaxy, species were still seen as property. The Galactic Council spoke against it, but the outer markets ignored such laws. To many, it was just business. But when Ethan looked at the woman, at Lyra, he saw no broken spirit. She stood proud, her eyes fixed on him as if she recognized something in him. A merchant slithered forward, his 6 thin arms moving quickly. He had scales the color of copper and a mouth full of sharp clicking teeth. Human, the merchant hissed. You have interest? Fine choice. Solari are rare, loyal, gentle, perfect for service. She will make you happy. Ethan's jaw tightened. He hated the word service spoken like that. Still, he kept his face calm. What's her price? He asked, though his voice felt heavy. The merchant rattled off a number in trade credits, far more than Ethan would normally spend on anything. But in that moment, Ethan was not thinking of profit or logic. He was thinking of the way Lyra's eyes glowed with hope. I'll take her, he said quietly. The merchant's grin widened. Papers were exchanged, digital credits transferred, and the clear panel opened with a hiss. Lyra stepped forward slowly as if afraid it was a trick. Ethan extended his hand. You're free now, he said softly. Lyra blinked, her eyes shining even brighter. She tilted her head, not fully understanding his words. Free? She repeated, her voice like soft music. Yes. You're coming, with me. Not as property, not as a slave. You're your own person. For a heartbeat, Lyra stood frozen. Then, to Ethan's surprise, her lips curved into a wide smile. Not a small or careful one, but a bright, radiant smile full of relief. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed them over her chest as if holding her own heartbeat. Human kindness, she whispered, almost to herself. I heard, but I did not believe. Ethan led her out of the market. The crowd parted slightly, curious glances following them. Some aliens shook their heads, muttering about foolish humans. Others seemed confused, not understanding why someone would buy a companion only to speak of freedom. But Ethan didn't care. He walked with steady steps, guiding Lyra toward his small ship docked at the edge of the station. Inside, Lyra looked around in wonder. She touched the walls, the seats, even the simple lights, as if everything was new. She paused by the co-pilot's chair and glanced at Ethan. "Is this for me?" she asked softly. "If you want it, yes." Ethan replied with a small smile. "Here, you make choices. You're not here to serve, you're here to live." Her golden-ringed eyes filled with emotion. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then quietly, she whispered, "Thank you." Ethan powered up the ship, preparing to leave the station. As the engines hummed, he glanced at Lyra again. She was still smiling, though tears glistened on her cheeks. She had been bought in chains, but in truth she felt she had been given wings. That day, the galaxy shifted for Lyra of the Solari. And for Ethan Cole, a simple trade mission had turned into the beginning of something far greater than he could imagine. The hum of the ship's engines filled the small cabin as Ethan Cole guided the vessel away from Valen Prime. The stars stretched into long streaks, then settled again as the ship entered faster than light travel. For Ethan, it was a routine jump. For Lyra, it was the first step into an unknown life. She sat quietly in the co-pilot's seat, her silver-blue skin catching the faint glow of the instruments. Her golden-ringed eyes were wide with wonder. She had traveled through space before, but always as someone else's property, never with the right to choose where she went. Now, sitting beside Ethan, she felt the difference like sunlight after years of shadow. Ethan glanced at her. "You don't have to sit there if you don't want to. You can rest or explore the ship, whatever makes you comfortable." Lyra tilted her head, confused. "I can choose?" "Yes," Ethan said simply. The words seemed heavy with meaning for her. She placed her hands together in her lap, thinking. Then slowly, she smiled. "Then I choose to sit here. I want to see where the stars take us." Ethan nodded. "Fair. Enough." For a while, silence filled the cabin. Not awkward silence, just quiet, like two people learning to breathe in the same rhythm. Finally, Lyra spoke. "Why did you buy me?" Her voice was soft, cautious. Ethan kept his eyes on the controls. "Because no one deserves to be sold. I couldn't just leave you there." Lyra studied his face, as if searching for a hidden motive. Among her people, kindness from strangers was rare, but Ethan's tone carried no deceit. "You are different," she whispered. "Humans. We try to be," Ethan said. "At least some of us. We believe freedom matters. Everyone deserves the right to live their own life." Lyra's eyes shone. She had heard whispers of humans before, stories told in hushed voices among those like her, companions who dreamed of something better. But she never believed those stories until now. That first night on the ship, Ethan showed her around. The vessel was small but well kept. A compact living space, 2 cabins, a galley for meals, and the engine bay. "This cabin is yours," Ethan said, opening the door to a tidy room with a bed, a desk, and a small storage unit. Lyra stepped inside, slowly. The air smelled faintly of metal and cleaning solvent. She touched the bedsheets soft under her fingers. "This is mine?" Ethan smiled. "Yes, you can decorate it, arrange it, do whatever you like. It's your space." Her eyes grew moist. She had never had a room of her own. In the markets, she shared crowded quarters with others. Even when chosen by buyers, she was always given a corner in someone else's home, never a place that belonged to her. She turned to Ethan. "Thank you," he waved a hand. "No need. Everyone deserves a home." That night, Lyra lay awake for a long time. The hum of the ship was steady, almost soothing. She stared at the ceiling, her heart beating quickly. For the first time in her life, no one was watching her, no one was telling her what to do. She was free to dream, and so she did. In the days that followed, A rhythm formed. Ethan went about his duties, checking navigation, maintaining the engines, managing the cargo. Lyra followed him at first, curious about everything. She asked questions constantly, her voice filled with childlike wonder. What does this button do? Why does the engine make that sound? Why do humans breathe faster than Solari? Ethan answered patiently. He enjoyed her curiosity. Her laughter filled the ship with a warmth it had never known. One morning, Lyra offered to help. I can learn, she said. I don't want to sit idle while you work. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You don't have to. You're free now. Yes, I am free, she said firmly, and I choose to help. Her determination made him smile, so he taught her how to run simple diagnostics, how to clean filters, how to read the navigation charts. To his surprise, she learned quickly, her mind sharp and eager. Sometimes when Ethan was busy, Lyra would sit by the viewport and watch the stars. She often spoke softly to herself, as if telling the stars her secrets. Once, Ethan overheard her whisper, I am not property. I am Lyra. It made his chest tighten with both pride and sorrow. One evening, as they shared a meal in the galley, Lyra asked another question. What will happen now? Where are we going? Ethan set down his fork. My next stop is Eris Station. I trade fuel cells there. After that, I'll see where work takes me. And me? She asked. Ethan looked at her carefully. That depends on you. If you want to stay with me, you can. If you want me to take you somewhere safe, I'll do that. The choice is yours. Lyra lowered her gaze, thinking deeply. The idea of making choices still felt new, fragile, like holding a glass orb that might break. But slowly she nodded. I want to stay, she said. With you. At least until I learn what freedom truly means. Ethan smiled faintly. Then welcome aboard, crew member. Lyra laughed softly. The sound was light, full of joy. She had been called many things in her life, slave, property, commodity, but never crew. The word felt like a gift. Days turned into weeks. Lyra grew more confident. She decorated her cabin with small things she crafted from spare materials. Patterns, woven from wire, tiny sculptures made of scrap metal. She even painted faint designs on the walls, shapes inspired by her homeworld skies. One night she told Ethan about her people. The Solari were once free. Long ago we built ships and explored the stars, but we were peaceful, and others were not. We lost our worlds. Now many of us are raised only to serve. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were steady. I thought that was my only path, but you showed me another. Ethan listened quietly, respecting her courage to share. You're stronger than you know, he said. Maybe one day your people will rise again. Maybe you'll help lead them. Lyra's eyes widened, then softened. She smiled. Maybe. But not all was calm. On Eris Station, whispers spread quickly. Merchants recognized Lyra. Some frowned when they saw her walking freely beside Ethan. Others muttered that a human had stolen property. Lyra noticed the stares but held her head high. She had learned from Ethan that dignity was not given. It was claimed. One merchant even approached Ethan. If you don't want her, I'll pay double your price. Solari are valuable. Ethan's jaw tightened. She's not for sale. She's free. The merchant laughed, as if hearing a joke. But when he saw Ethan's steady eyes, his laughter faltered. He walked away, shaking his head. Lyra saw the exchange and felt something stir in her chest. Pride. She was not only free, she was defended, valued, respected. That night, she told Ethan, I never thought I would feel joy. But now every day feels like a gift. Ethan looked at her across the table, seeing the glow in her eyes. Then I'd say we're doing something right. As the ship prepared to leave Eris Station, Lyra stood at the viewport again, watching the stars. She placed her hand on the glass. Thank you, human, she whispered softly, though Ethan was in the other room. You gave me more than freedom. You gave me hope. And as the stars stretched once more into lines of light, Lyra knew her journey had only just begun. The ship glided through the silence of deep space, its engines a steady hum. To Ethan, travel had always been routine, a way to earn credits and keep moving. But now, with Lyra on board, every journey felt different. The air carried laughter, where once there had been only quiet. Lyra adapted quickly to life aboard the vessel. She learned how to read star charts, how to monitor the engines, and even how to cook simple meals using human recipes. Her curiosity never faded. Each day she found something new to marvel at, but shadows followed them. When they stopped at Draven Outpost, Ethan noticed the looks again. Whispers spread faster here. Traders stared at Lyra as though she was a misplaced item from their market shelves. Some laughed, others frowned, and a few looked at Ethan with thinly veiled anger. As the two walked through the station's marketplace, a tall alien with red skin and ridged horns stepped into their path. His eyes narrowed on Lyra. "You," he growled. "Solari don't walk free. Who owns you?" Lyra stiffened, but before she could speak, Ethan answered firmly. "No one owns her. She's with me as crew," the alien sneered. "Crew? Don't insult me, human. I know what she is. You stole her." Ethan kept his voice calm but strong. "I bought her, yes, but not to own, to free." A small crowd gathered. Curious. Murmurs rippled among them. Some found the idea laughable. Others seemed unsettled. The horned alien spat on the floor. "You humans pretend to be noble, but the galaxy doesn't change. Property stays property." Ethan stepped closer, his gaze steady. "Not anymore." The silence that followed was sharp as a blade. Then with a snarl, the alien turned and pushed through the crowd. The watchers slowly drifted away, whispering among themselves. Lyra let out a breath she had been holding. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes shone with something new. Pride. "You spoke for me," she whispered. Ethan gave a small smile. "I'll always speak for you, until the day you speak louder than I ever could." Back on the ship, Lyra sat by the viewport staring at the stars. Her thoughts swirled. She had once believed her voice had no value, yet here she was, defended, openly in front of strangers. The feeling was strange, powerful, frightening, and wonderful all at once. Later, she found Ethan in the engine bay, tightening a loose panel. "Teach me," she said. Ethan looked up. "Teach you what?" "To speak, to stand, to be strong the way you are." He studied her serious expression, then nodded. "All right. But strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's calm. Sometimes it's choosing the right moment." Lyra absorbed his words like sunlight. Each lesson, each act of kindness gave her a piece of herself she never knew was missing. Days passed. Their bond grew deeper, not as owner and servant, but as teacher and learner, as partners sharing a journey. One evening, while sharing a meal, Lyra surprised Ethan by asking, "Do humans ever feel weak?" Ethan chuckled softly. "All the time. We just don't like to admit it." Lyra tilted her head. "Then why do you still stand tall?" "Because if you bow to weakness," Ethan explained, "you stay on the ground. If you stand, even when it's hard, you move forward." Lyra's golden-ringed eyes glowed with thought. She repeated softly, as if engraving the words into her soul, "Stand and move forward." But the shadows grew closer. News traveled across trading routes. Stories spread, a human who bought a Solari, then freed her. Some laughed at the tale. Others called it dangerous. The merchants who profited from the sale of companions were not pleased. One night, while Ethan slept, Lyra stood alone in the galley. She looked at her reflection in the small metal surface of the counter. Her face was calm, but inside her heart raced. She remembered the markets, the cold stares, the labels that defined her life. And she remembered Ethan's words. "Until the day you speak louder than I ever could," she whispered to herself. "I will." Their next stop was Krellin Station, a busy hub known for its trade in rare crystals. Ethan needed supplies and Lyra insisted on joining him. As they walked through the bustling corridors, Lyra felt eyes on her again, but this time she did not lower her head. She lifted her chin, her step steady. She walked beside Ethan as an equal. At one stall, a merchant looked at her and said, "Solari companion, yes? How much for a day?" Lyra's heart pounded. Once she would have stayed silent, waiting for someone else to answer. But now she straightened, looked the merchant in the eye and said clearly, "I am not for sale, I am free." The merchant blinked, startled. Nearby shoppers turned their heads. Murmurs spread. Ethan watched silently, pride glowing in his chest. The merchant tried to laugh it off, but the moment lingered in the air like a spark. Back on the ship, Ethan congratulated her. "You did it. You spoke." Lyra smiled, her face radiant. "I felt strong." "You were," Ethan said, "and you'll only grow stronger." She touched her chest, feeling the steady beat of her heart. "For the first time, I believe it." But strength brought risk. One cycle later, a message arrived through the comms. The voice was cold, mechanical. "Human vessel Aurora. Return the Solari. She is property of the Syndicate. You have one cycle to comply." Ethan and Lyra exchanged a look. The Syndicate, one of the largest networks of traders in the galaxy. They would not ignore what Ethan had done. Lyra's hands trembled, but her eyes were firm. "They will not take me back." Ethan placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Not while I'm alive." For a moment, fear and determination mixed between them. Then Lyra lifted her chin. "Then we stand. We move forward." Ethan nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. "That's the spirit." That night Lyra could not sleep. She sat by the viewport watching the endless stars. Her thoughts raced. Fear whispered in her mind. What if the Syndicate was too strong? What if they came for her? But another voice answered, calm and firm. "You are not property. You are free. Speak, stand, move forward." She smiled faintly. She was not the same person who once stood behind a glass panel, waiting to be chosen. She had chosen herself. The next day, Ethan began, preparing the ship, reinforcing shields, checking weapons, planning escape routes. Lyra helped, her hands steady, her resolve firm. Together they worked in silence, two souls united by purpose. And though the shadows of the market loomed large, Lyra no longer felt small. She felt ready, because she was no longer just Lyra the slave. She was Lyra the free, and soon the galaxy would hear her voice. The ship descended slowly through the clouds of Lyra's homeworld, Solara Prime, a planet she had not seen in years. From above, the surface shimmered with pale blue oceans and jagged crystal mountains, sunlight glinting across every ridge. Lyra's heart raced as memories flooded back. Memories of a world once free, now fragmented and subdued by alien traders who had profited from her people's past. Ethan piloted the ship carefully toward a hidden landing site, one known only to a few Solari who had managed to survive outside the control of the markets. Lyra's hand hovered over the controls, trembling slightly, though her eyes were determined. "This is it," she whispered. "This is my home, or what remains of it." Ethan glanced at her. "We'll be careful, and we're not here to fight, just to see, to help." Lyra nodded. "I want to help my people. I don't want them to be lost like I almost was." The ship touched down quietly among tall crystal spires that rose like towers from the ground. Hidden pathways led them to a small clearing where a group of Solari waited, some cautious, some curious. The leader of the group, a tall Solari with silver markings along her face, stepped forward. Her eyes widened when she saw Lyra. "Lyra?" she asked, voice trembling. Lyra nodded. "I'm here, and I've brought a human who believes in our freedom." The leader blinked at Ethan, disbelief written across her face. "A human believes in us?" Ethan bowed his head slightly. I believe all beings deserve to live free. No one should be property. Murmurs rippled through the group. Many Solari had lost hope long ago, conditioned to believe the markets controlled their lives. One elder, leaning on a crystal staff, stepped forward. If what you say is true, if we can truly be free, it is almost too much to imagine. Lyra's chest swelled with hope. She stepped closer to Ethan. It's real, she said firmly. I've seen it. I've felt it. Over the next days, Lyra and Ethan worked with the Solari in secret. They rebuilt shelters, taught them basic human tools, and shared knowledge about starships, communication, and trade. Lyra became a bridge between humans and her people, showing them that freedom was not only possible, it could be joyful. Yet, not all Solari were easily convinced. Many had grown fearful over generations, hesitant to trust outsiders or even themselves. One young Solari whispered to Lyra, eyes wide, if we try, if we leave, the traitors will come. They will take us back. What if we fail? Lyra knelt beside her. Then we try anyway. We are stronger than we think. Look at yourself. Look at all of us. Fear may exist, but it does not own us. We choose. Ethan watched silently, impressed by Lyra's calm strength. She had grown from someone who once feared every glance to a leader who inspired courage. But the peace could not last forever. The Syndicate, enraged at losing one Solari, began sending patrols to locate the group. Ethan intercepted a message. Human vessel Aurora, you interfere in the market at your own peril. Return the Solari, or face consequences. Lyra read the message over his shoulder. Her lips pressed together, but her eyes burned with determination. They will not take us back, she said softly, yet firmly. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then we stand. Together. Lyra nodded, feeling a surge of courage. She turned to her people who were watching nervously. We have a choice, she said. We are not property, we will stand, we will be free. A quiet murmur of agreement spread among them. Slowly, confidence replaced fear. To prepare, Ethan helped fortify the hidden settlement. Shields were placed around the perimeter, and warning sensors set to detect approaching ships. Lyra trained alongside him, learning how to operate the shields and communicate with allies across the planet. During a quiet moment, she asked, "Do humans always fight for freedom?" Ethan smiled. Not always. But when we see injustice, many of us cannot ignore it. It's part of what makes us human. Lyra considered his words. She understood now that her joy, her life, was not just the result of one act, but part of a larger idea. Freedom, respect, choice. These were principles worth standing for. The first Syndicate patrol arrived quietly. A sleek ship hovered just above the treetops, scanning for the settlement. Lyra stood with Ethan and the Solari, feeling fear for the first time in days, but it was tempered with resolve. Ethan's voice was steady. Do not run. We will not give them what they want. Stand firm and trust each other. Lyra breathed deeply. Her mind was clear. She looked at her people, then back at Ethan. This is our moment, she said. Not just for us, but for everyone like us. We are free. The patrol sent a warning signal, but Ethan responded calmly, showing them shields in place and a message. You will not take them. This is their choice, and it will be respected. For a tense moment, there was only silence. Then, slowly, the Syndicate ship withdrew. The Solari gasped in relief. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the realization that they could resist. Lyra's hands shook, but her smile was radiant. In the following days, the hidden settlement became a hub of hope. Lyra's people began teaching each other new skills, repairing ships, growing food, communicating across the planet. Word spread to nearby systems. The Solari had reclaimed their freedom. Lyra became a symbol of courage. She spoke to the people openly. We were told we were property. We were told we were weak. But we are not. Each choice we make defines us. Each step we take strengthens us. And together, we are unstoppable. Her words ignited hope. Even the most fearful Solari found courage in her voice. Ethan watched quietly from the sidelines, proud. Lyra had grown into a leader, not by force, but by example. Her joy and freedom inspired him too. Humanity had shown the way, but it was Lyra who carried the torch. Late one night, Lyra and Ethan stood by the edge of the settlement, overlooking the crystal mountains glowing in the moonlight. "You have done something amazing," Ethan said. "Not just for your people, but for the galaxy. You showed them they can be free." Lyra's eyes shone. "I only had to see what freedom looks like. You gave me that, and I want to give it to everyone who never had a chance." Ethan nodded. "Then the work continues." Lyra smiled softly, her hands clasped behind her back. "I am ready. Whatever comes next, I will face it. Not as property, not as someone afraid, but as myself." And for the first time, she felt truly whole. The galaxy was changing. Shadows of the market still lingered, but the light of hope was growing stronger. Lyra's people, once silent and fearful, now spoke freely. And Ethan understood something deeper about humanity. Sometimes the greatest power was not in weapons or ships. It was in belief, trust, and courage. Together, they had begun something far larger than themselves. The Solari were free, and the galaxy would never forget that a human and a Solari had shown the way. The early light of Solara Prime spread across the crystal mountains, casting sparkling reflections into the valleys below. Lyra stood at the edge of the settlement, watching the horizon. The stars from last night had faded, replaced by the soft glow of the sun. For the first time in her life, she felt completely at peace. Around her, the Solari moved with confidence. Some repaired small ships, others tended gardens, and a few gathered in groups to discuss plans for the future. Freedom was not just a word. It was alive, breathing through every action and choice they now made. Lyra's heart swelled with pride. It had been a long journey, from the glass panels of alien markets to this hidden world she was helping rebuild, and she knew it had only been possible because someone believed in her. Ethan walked up beside her, his boots crunching softly on the crystal ground. "The settlement looks alive," he said, scanning the activity. Lyra smiled. "It is alive. Not just with buildings and tools, but with hope. People finally believe they can choose their own lives." Ethan nodded. "That's something most species never get to experience. You've given them a gift, Lyra." She glanced at him, her golden-ringed eyes bright. "And you gave me that gift first." Over the following days, word of the settlement's freedom spread across nearby systems. Traders, curious but cautious, arrived to witness the transformation. Some expected fear, surrender, or chaos. What they found instead was a community united by trust, courage, and choice. Lyra welcomed the visitors. "We are not property," she told them clearly. "We are free, and freedom is a right, not a privilege. Anyone can choose it if they have courage." The visitors exchanged glances, many impressed by her confidence. They had heard rumors of the Solari, stories of beings who once obeyed without question. But here was a Solari speaking freely, leading her people, radiant with determination. Even some skeptical aliens found themselves inspired. A small group of traders whispered among themselves, realizing that the old system of buying and selling companions might soon collapse. Ethan watched from the ship's observation deck. Lyra had grown into a leader, a symbol not just for her people, but for the galaxy. Humanity had shown the spark, but she had become the flame. Yet peace did not come without trials. The Syndicate had not forgotten them. A fleet of patrol ships appeared at the edge of the atmosphere, scanning for signs of the settlement. Lyra did not flinch. She stood on the crystal ridge, joined by Ethan and a team of Solari who had learned how to operate the shields he had installed. "They think fear will control us," Lyra said quietly, eyes focused on the approaching ships. "They are wrong." Ethan's hand rested briefly on her shoulder. "Then let's show them the truth." The syndicate ships descended cautiously, expecting resistance or panic. Instead, they found a settlement fully prepared, with shields raised and Solari standing together, confident and unafraid. Lyra's voice echoed through the communication array. "This is our home. We are free. You will not take us back. Your threats cannot change our choices." The syndicate commander hesitated. He had faced resistance before, but never like this. Beings standing calmly, without fear, united in purpose. Slowly, the fleet began to withdraw, realizing that the cost of aggression was far higher than expected. Lyra let out a quiet breath, turning to see her people cheering softly. Ethan smiled, pride swelling in his chest. In the days that followed, the Solari began to organize their society differently. They shared knowledge freely, created schools for their children, and repaired small vessels to connect with other settlements. For the first time in generations, they felt ownership over their own destiny. Lyra walked among them, listening to their ideas and offering guidance when needed. She taught them not just practical skills, but the importance of choice, respect, and courage. Every action reinforced the lesson that life was no longer dictated by others. It was theirs to shape. Ethan often watched from a distance, quietly admiring her growth. She had once been someone waiting to be chosen. Now she was a beacon guiding her people toward a brighter future. One evening, Lyra approached the top of a crystal tower with Ethan. The wind brushed her silver-blue hair, making it shimmer in the setting sun. She gazed across the valley filled with the sounds of life, laughter, conversation, and the gentle hum of machinery. "This is beautiful," Ethan said softly. Lyra nodded. "It is. But it's more than that. It's proof. Proof that freedom is possible. That hope can exist even after darkness." Ethan placed his hand over hers. "You did this. I only helped a little," she smiled, golden-ringed eyes glowing with warmth. "No, you gave me the chance. Without you, I would still be waiting in the market, believing I had no choice. You showed me what freedom felt like, and I carried it forward." They stood in silence for a moment, the crystal towers reflecting the fading light. Around them, their people laughed and worked, a community alive and proud. Word of the Solari's success continued to spread across the galaxy. Other species who had been trapped in similar systems began to reach out seeking guidance. Lyra and Ethan, along with a small group of trained Solari, shared strategies for self-defense, communication, and building independence. Lyra's heart swelled. She had not only found freedom for herself, but she was helping others discover theirs. Humanity's influence had started the spark, but her people's courage fanned it into a flame that could not be extinguished. Months later, the settlement was fully functional. Children played freely, elders taught their wisdom, and the community thrived under Lyra's guidance. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the horizon, the Solari gathered to celebrate their first anniversary of freedom. Lyra stood before them, radiant and confident. "A year ago, we were told we had no choice, that our lives belonged to others. Today we stand free. Today we decide our own path. And tomorrow, we will build a future worthy of our courage." The crowd erupted in cheers, voices lifted together in joy and unity. Lyra's heart leapt. This was the life she had dreamed of, not just for herself, but for everyone who had suffered in silence. Ethan stood beside her, quietly observing. "You've done more than I could have imagined," he said. Lyra turned to him, smiling. "And you helped me see it was possible. Freedom is never given, it's chosen, and we chose it together." The galaxy beyond Solara Prime began to change. The Syndicate's markets for companions started to crumble as stories of courage and freedom spread. Traders and buyers alike began to question the old ways, inspired by beings who had refused to be property. Lyra became a legend, not just among the Solari but across many systems. She was no longer the one who was bought. She was Lyra, the free, the brave, the voice of hope. Ethan, too, found a quiet satisfaction. Humanity had shown its strength not through conquest or weapons, but through belief in freedom and respect for life. Together, they had made a difference that would last far beyond any single market or starport. As night fell over the settlement, Lyra walked to the highest tower, gazing at the stars stretching across the sky. She felt the wind on her face, the pulse of life around her, and the warmth of trust and courage in her heart. "This is just the beginning," she whispered to herself. "We will continue to grow. We will continue to choose freedom." Ethan joined her silently, and for a moment they simply watched the universe together. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown dangers and wonders. But Lyra no longer felt small. She had found her voice, her strength, and her people, and the stars now seemed filled not with fear but with promise. A new dawn had arrived, for Lyra, her people, and the galaxy itself.